Okay, so I've already done a video for Windows and a video for Mac OS for the LT Spice component. So I'm not going to go over that. What I thought would be good though is if I could show you what I want you to do for this piece. So let's just zoom in on it. The lab component, right? So I want you to grab three resistors, a 100 ohm, a 220 ohm, and a 330 ohm, and I want you to set the power supply up to put out 10 volts, and then I want you to measure the voltages across the three resistors, and then I want you to measure the currents through the three resistors. And I'm not quite sure about the right way to do this, but let's have a look. All right, so I don't have the lab equipment with me at home, but let me just show you what I do have. And I'm going to have to turn on my webcam. There we go. So one thing I have, and I don't know whether you can see that quite properly, right? There we go. This is a tiny little bit of Proto Board, and it's exactly like the ones that we have in the lab. It's just a bit smaller, and the rows at the top and the bottom of your screen there, the bottom row is all connected along the bottom, and then the row above that is all connected to the row above that, but not between those two rows. Then the top two rows, the top row is connected all together, as is the second top row, but the top row and the second top row are not electrically connected together. Right, so let's just take that label off too. There we go. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to try and put three resistors together. Now I don't have the right values, I don't have a full complement of resistors at home, but right, there's a resistor, and that one actually looks like a 1K resistor rather than one of the ones. But what I want you to do is basically bend the resistor like that. It's not really in focus, right? And then you take it and you can put it, I think the best way to do it, now let's just see what the circuit looks like. I like making the physical circuit look like the diagram. So let's just go back to the diagram, right? There's the diagram. So if this first resistor is R1, I like having R1 horizontal like that. So let's see if we can do that. So here's our R1. Right, I've put R1 in, and maybe can get focus. And then I need to put R3, which is the other one that's horizontal, connected to it, and then across. So here I'm putting R3 in, and I'll show you what I'm doing shortly. Right, I like to make sure that it looks similar to the actual circuit diagram. And then I'm going to make R2 go up and down, right? So I'm bending the legs of R2, and then I'm making R2 go up and down. So you're going to see something like that. And again, the values of these resistors are not the ones I'm asking you to use. Whether I can quite get the right angle, but you should see that all three of those resistors are connected to the one node. It's labeled node A in the circuit diagram, and yeah, that's the way I want you to lay it out. So I'm just trying to think about how I can show you. So with measuring stuff, right, particularly measuring currents and voltages, right? So here's my resistors again, and if I'm going to measure the voltage across R1, then one thing I can do is, I can't quite hold everything. I need about 4 hands to do this properly. Oh well. Right, that's no good. Let me see if I can do this. I will see if I can move the camera down. I haven't done this before, so let's see what happens. Right, so if we can, it's not quite focusing properly. And it's not quite focusing properly. Where are we going? There we are. There, that's better. Right, so I've got the red probe and the black probe across that resistor, and I'm measuring it like that. Okay, that kind of works. Oh, that's looking at my ceiling now. And then the other thing though is that's measuring voltage. In order to measure current, I need to break the circuit, and I need to insert now an ammeter, not a voltmeter, into the circuit, right, between the device that I'm measuring. Oops, that was interesting. I just made the one of the resistors just pop out into the air. Right, I need to insert the ammeter between the device and the rest of the circuit. So a way to do that is like that. Right, so I've broken the circuit and I've inserted the meter between the resistor that I want to measure the current through and the rest of the circuit. Okay, and then I can then I can measure the current. The other thing to remember, I think I talked about it last week, is that this one's a bit different from the ones that we have, right? So but you can see the middle one here is the common one, and the right hand one with the red surround is where I'd normally put the red probe if I were measuring voltage or resistance. If I need to measure current, I put the red probe into the grey surrounded one marked 10 amps, right? Because that's where the ammeter measuring component needs to be inserted. The ones in the lab are a little different, so we'll have to go through that in the lab when we do that. Okay, there was only one other thing I wanted to talk about, and that is to remind you that I want you to use the template that is attached to the labs to do your lab reports. Right, let's just zoom in on this a bit. Right, I want you to put the date and your name. You probably won't have any lab partners this semester. Title of the lab, what the objective is, and then all the data in here. And just upload this spreadsheet into Blackboard and you're done, right? When we're in the lab, you'll have to use a power supply and a digital multimeter, so you need to put the model and the serial number of those devices in here. And yeah, the nice thing about a spreadsheet is you can do calculations here, right? So for the lab we want to do, right, this lab here, you can build a table like this very simply within Excel. So here we can go V and I, and we can say R1, R2, R3, right? And you can fill in these squares, these cells, with the values for the LT spice component, and make sure you label it, right? So you can go up here and do a merge and center and LT spice values. And then down here you can do the same sort of thing. Again, values measured in lab. And you can do R1, R2 and R3, and you can do V and I. Now, one thing that's going to be different about the lab is the resistances you get are not necessarily what they're labeled. So you're also going to have to measure R1, which should be 100 ohms, but could be 101 ohms, right? Also make sure you put units. The R2, which should be 220, could be, I don't know, 210. And R3, which should be 330, that could be 333. Right? So make sure you measure the resistance of each of the three resistors as well. And of course, those numbers will affect here. The other thing is, even though you set the voltmeter to, or the voltage source to try and set it to 10 volts, my guess is it won't be 10 volts. It will be close, but I suggest you measure the voltage as well. Okay, that's all for Lab 1.